Hey guys, this is Justin back with an engineer's perspective. I'm attempting to shoot my final impressions on Magnacut video here, so it's kind of a big video, but I'm not feeling very prepared for it, so we're just going to give this a shot and see what happens. So I've got two knives in Magnacut here. This one here is the Spyderco Mule, sent to me by Prentice Goodwin. Thank you to him for letting me hang on to it for a very long time. This one up here is the Meglio Knives 8-inch Giotto in Magnacut. The average hardness of this batch here was like 62.7 Rockwell. So let's just call it 62 to 63 probably. And then up here, the Meglios, this is in their kind of production line of knives. And in the mini review, I think I misspoke because I didn't know at the time, but I said they were 62 to 63 target. I think that's what their custom Magnacut knives are doing. These production ones I think are more like 61 target. So let's just talk about these in their own context. This one here, the way it sharpens is very nice for a stainless steel. And that's kind of what I find between both of these two knives actually, is they're both very nice sharpening stainless steels. They both come up to a super fine edge, which is definitely, I think, a standout feature of Magnacut, is they're capable of taking just very nice, fine slicing edges, which is particularly nice in a kitchen knife for a lot of people. So that is appreciated, but how much bite do they retain? Let's talk about this one first. It's pretty easy to keep some bite in it, but it's not like the kind of bite you can find yourself with even with like S30V, and certainly not with something like 10V. It's more the kind of bite you find with like crew wear, which is to say it's very fine, but it doesn't have that same kind of material, just like grip it and rip it kind of bite that just really kind of turns me on. But good, you know, I mean, if I can't get an edge with good bite, then I'm not interested. So, I mean, enough to satisfy me for sure. This one tends to seem up like it comes up even finer than this. I haven't sharpened it much on the lower grit edges, so maybe that's why, but it comes up real fine. I mean, right now it's got good bite. I just dropped it on the 1 micron. So, I mean, it gets decent bite. But I really think this one comes up finer and cleaner. So it's softer than this, but the heat treat on it's a little bit better in terms of retained austenite probably. So makes this one's more enjoyable to sharpen. Not because it moves faster, but because it comes up cleaner. And that's the thing I wanted to talk about with this. Is so far all of these here, well, not all of these because I picked out the two that don't, but generally most stainless steel you're going to come across, especially in a production setting, is going to have a pretty temperamental burr, and it's just not going to come up as nice and fine as your non-stainless alloys over here, like Crewware 4V, M4, 10V, excuse me. These are all going to come up finer and faster than these will. And I have never come across anything that would bridge that gap, that would make me prefer a stainless steel over these, because these just sharpen so much better. And because they typically run so much harder, like these three, they just tend to have a much better edge life that I prefer. And Magnacut's purpose was to bridge that gap in its edge retention class, being around the Crewware 4V point of the edge retention hierarchy. And it kind of has and kind of hasn't. That's what I'm going to say. You know, when I was comparing it to Crewware, it was different. So I was like, you know, I think this is more like 4V. Now I've got 4V. I've tried it out. And unfortunately, this is not quite like 4V. I'd say the edge that comes up can be similar. But man, I mean, I don't know the hardness on this 4V, but these St. Nick's knives 4V tend to be run around like 64 to 65, and the way this stuff moves and comes up on the sharpening stone is insane. go check out Tom Hosang Outdoors. He's been stropping the edge back on his, and it is bananas how this stuff strops back. Actually crazy. And Magnacut can strop back just fine too, but it's just not the same. The Achilles heel of having chromium in the matrix is still a problem. Triple B has kind of said that his theory is that somehow that the chromium gums up the matrix and is what reduces that sharpening experience. And I think he's right, it just does. So this is a way above average sharpening stainless steel. It much prefers diamond abrasives than Japanese water stones, but you can definitely sharpen this on Japanese water stones, but it's not the best experience. It's just not. But it does not come up like a Crewwear or an M4 or a 4V or even a 10V, although it moves a heck of a lot faster than 10V. It just doesn't. Like it feels like it's a stainless steel, and that's really unfortunate. I was really hoping it would kind of overcome that. So for me, does it replace these? No, it doesn't. It doesn't sharpen as well as these, and even though it is very tough, which Larrin nailed that. The epic toughness on these things is just, it's where it's at. But the trouble is you're not really going to see super high hardnesses with this steel, and it's still limited by carbide volume. You know, I mean, I'm blown away that Spyderco went 62, 63 on these things, because like it's probably pretty close to the hardness of this M4. But in use, I'm going to choose the M4. It has higher carbide volume and equal hardness at least. It's just better performing for me, and it sharpens up better. And so I'm going to choose M4. So I mean, an M4 is an easy trade. Crewwear, you know, it just similar performance to Crewwear, which I love Crewwear for its sharpening. Not so much its edge retention, although it does have very good edge stability, but it sharpens up better. That's the premier thing for me. I'm probably going to choose Crewwear. Just throwing out there that I don't need a stainless steel, although in this kitchen knife, this was a huge selling point, but for this thing, or pocket knives, like whatever. So for me, it doesn't have the carbide volumes and hardnesses of like 10V or M4. It doesn't have the hardness or sharpenability that 4V and Crewwear have from this limited sampling here. Although, like I said, this one is better, but if you go for the higher hardness, more retained austenite probably, and then you reduce that sharpening experience, whereas you don't have to make that sacrifice with these knives. Because like I said, this softer one is a little bit better sharpening than this one, like noticeably, not like crazy, but you can notice it. But sacrifice hardness on there. I mean, and we're not talking about custom heat treats here. That's a whole different thing, okay? Because you can get Magnacut up to 65 Rockwell custom heat treat. I'm sure there'd be low retained austenite. It'd be sexy as hell. But that's not what we're talking about here. So now let's move the discussion over, now that we've established it doesn't replace these for me, into the stainless steel realm. This is definitely where this conversation is happening. Do I prefer Magnacut this here over S30V? Absolutely, positively, hands down. Let's just take that out. The front end retention, the sharpening of it, it's all better. With that higher hardness and enough carbide volume, I have no problem with how it wears versus S30V. I'm choosing Magnacut every day. S35VN, out. LC200N. So now, if we're talking, I want an ultra stainless knife, Spyderco is going to replace this knife here, an LC200N, with Magnacut. If I'm looking for an ultra corrosion resistant knife, which one of these two am I going to take? Well, it depends. But I love LC200N, not because of its corrosion resistance, but because of how it sharpens. So if I'm looking for it because of how it sharpens, I'm still going to choose LC200N. Absolutely blows away Magnacut and how awesome it is to sharpen. But if I was, say, going to go back to like South Carolina, and if I had two salts, one LC200N and one a Magnacut, hands down I'd choose the Magnacut one for that situation. So If I could only choose between these two salts, one an LC200 and one a Magnacut, I'd probably, that's a hard question. I'd probably buy both. But I think Magnacut can replace LC200N for me. Just because I have other steels that sharpen up really well. Now let's talk about this is a moderate elephant in the room here. So I've got a 940 here in 20 CV, and I've got a pair of 3 in M390 here. So the question is, oh, does it replace M390s, an M390 killer or whatever? And the answer is it freaking depends. Like, people just need to figure that out. That's always the answer with this stuff. This 940 here, it's probably around 59 Rockwell. It has really great working edge retention, and the way it sharpens isn't awful. I've got 204P also that sharpens way worse than this, but tends to hold that longer. But I would take Magnacut over this 20 CV. I really would. Like I said, it's got the hardness to keep it going, enough carbide volume to keep it going. It sharpens so much better. I'm going to be choosing Magnacut over this 940. Now this pair of 3. This is some good M390, and that's really the trick of it, is does it replace M390? Well, what kind of M390 do you have? Because I think this is still my favorite high edge retention stainless steel, and this exact knife. Not M390 isn't my favorite, but this exact sample of M390. Because like I said, I've got an analog of it here, and it's not my favorite, but this exact sample, I think I still prefer it over Magnacut. And it's just carbide volume, you know? Does it hold as stable of an edge? No, but I don't really run into that with these knives. I mean, I did experience rolling on the original factory edge of this a couple times, but once I got that out, it was a whole different ball game. But I mean, this M390, I've hit big staples with it, and it did basically the same thing between these two. So at the geometry that these knives are being run at, you're not taking advantage of Magnacut and what it can do. So because I don't really get to have that extra edge stability at these geometries, I don't take full advantage of it, but it's adequate on M390 at this probably like 61 Rockwell or so. I'm probably going to choose this one. It comes up pretty clean. It's not as fine as Magnacut, but it comes up pretty good, pretty easy. And it just lasts. It holds that upfront sharpness really solidly, and that working edge is just out of control. Not like 10V, but it's really good. So some good M390 is still probably my preference. I know I've got one viewer who's, if he watches this, is really gonna be all in the comments about that one. So Magnacut. Basically, so where does it lie then? I'll put the one winner of stainless out there. These are the winners over Magnacut for me. Where does it land? I think, so the only way I was able to find a stainless steel is saying, oh, I've got the unicorn M390, right? Like, this is not the common M390 20CV 204P that's out there. So my thoughts on M390 is, if you have to have a stainless steel and you want a high performance stainless steel, we still need to see exactly how people are coming out with this stuff on their production runs. But so far, it looks like this is the safe bet. If you said, you know, what should I get in a stainless steel? I want to get a knife that's $30, or I want to get a knife that's $400 in a stainless steel. What should I get? I think this is a good option. I think, especially if stainlessness is really important to you, I think Magnacut's probably a good choice. It's probably the choice, in my opinion. Now, good M390, depending on what you're doing, might be preferred. I don't have any S90V. It might be preferred also, especially if stainlessness isn't as high. But I mean, right now, this looks like it's, you know, top 3 stainless steels out there for me. And especially if you want a good sharpening stainless steel, this is the ticket with carbide volume and hardness. I mean, there's like AEBL out there, but in an EDC knife, I would rather have Magnacut over ABL all day, every day, and twice on Sunday just for that carbide volume. So that pretty much sums it up. Does it replace these high alloy non-stainless steels? No, not for me, it doesn't. Does it replace the bulk of currently available production stainless steels? For me, yes, it does actually. Yeah, especially where I want something that's decent sharpening and has carbide volume and hardness. It's going to replace those. Are there going to be a few out there that I might just pick over it? Also, yeah. But it's definitely a generational leap forward in stainless steels, and the kind of things that people are able to do with the custom stuff in Magnacut is pretty wild, and definitely like really seeing the steel shine when you get those extreme geometries at high hardness and leverage the chemistry and the toughness and the fine grain of Magnacut. So that's all I've got. That's my final thoughts on Magnacut. So have a good one. Bye.